This is the West Virginia Capitol Report. Funding for the West Virginia Capitol Report is brought to you by Mark A. Hunt and Associates and by the AFL-CIO of West Virginia.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Capitol Report. I'm Bill Laird, and we have a very interesting and timely show for you this week. As we all know, the citizens of the state of West Virginia went to the polls on November 6th to cast their vote in what many called the most important midterm or off-year election in our state for many, many years. In West Virginia, we elected a United States Senator, our 3 members of the Congress of the United States, 17 or 1/2 of the 34 members of the West Virginia State Senate, and all 100 members of the West Virginia House of Delegates. Early voting was up substantially in all counties across the state as people made their ways to their local voting precincts. As we all know, elections have consequences, and exercising your right to vote in free and open elections is an important responsibility for all citizens. Our democracy depends on the willingness of the public to participate in our electoral processes in choosing those candidates that will best represent our particular policy interests and concerns. Obviously, depending on our individual beliefs and values about what constitutes our best interests, citizens can choose to undertake action to impact and affect the outcome of elections through their work and support of particular candidates. In this week's show, we will be talking with several senior citizens who are members of the West Virginia Alliance for Retired Americans who recently attended a policy conference at the Cedar Lakes Conference Center near Ripley. This 14th annual conference of the Alliance for Retired Americans was held to discuss the success of the recent work during the general election and to discuss a number of policy matters important to the upcoming regular session of the West Virginia Legislature set to convene in January. Obviously, senior citizens have a keen interest in legislation affecting their lives, including Medicare, Social Security, and other matters critical to their interests. With this in mind, we're going to take a quick break and come back to you with the guests we spoke to at the 14th annual conference of the West Virginia Alliance for Retired Americans held at Cedar Lakes. This promises to be a great show. You won't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
This is the West Virginia Capitol Report. Funding for the West Virginia Capitol Report is brought to you by Mark A. Hunt and Associates and by the AFL-CIO of West Virginia.
I'm Mark Hunt.
And I'm Tom McGee.
In my life, I've worn many hats, from being a father, a husband, to a 14-year member of the state legislature, nominee for the United States Congress, but through it all, a lawyer helping people.
Well, Mark, I've been in uniform on the other side of the world and on television at CNN and locally. And hey, I was glad for this day. And I'm a lawyer helping people, so call us. We can help.
Dan Hill Construction Company in Glen Ferris has over 33 years of local service. With county, state, and federal and church construction experience, we can design and build any type of project that will suit your needs. Once you select us for your project, we'll supply all the tools, labor, equipment, and materials to complete your project on budget and on time. We're a zero drugs tolerance company with an excellent safety record as a bonded and insured commercial contractor, with an outstanding relationship and payment record reputation with all of our subcontractors and suppliers. References available upon request. We are Dan Hill Construction Company, 9033 Midland Trail, Glen Ferris, West Virginia, 304-632-1600, license number WV001196, rated in the best top 50 government contractors in West Virginia.
From under the Gold Dome in Charleston, this is the West Virginia Capitol Report.
Welcome back to the Capitol Report. And again, this bulk of this show comes from some interviews that we conducted while at the Cedar Lakes Conference Center. And again, the West Virginia Alliance for Retired Americans was the venue in which these discussions were held. And I had an opportunity to talk to a good friend of the Capitol Report, Josh Sword, who is president of the West Virginia AFL-CIO. And again, Josh talked to us a little bit about the importance of activism during elections. And again, we all have a vested interest in policies affecting our lives, and certainly retired West Virginians have a number of policy matters important to them. And again, with a focus on the upcoming legislative session, a lot of discussion about some of the policy initiatives and proposals that will be taken up during the upcoming regular session. So again, let's go ahead and see what Josh Sword had to say to us.
Yeah, this is the 14th annual conference for the West Virginia Alliance for Retired Americans. Every year, 100 or so retired union employees get together. They have their own organization, their own structure. They get together and they talk about what they'd like to do as an organization moving forward. This year we're hearing a lot about the election that just took place, and more importantly, looking forward, what they're going to be able to do to support their fellow retirees throughout the state. I'm really proud of the activism from the Alliance for Retired Americans. They volunteered to knock on doors, make phone calls, and all kinds of other election-related activities. They have a passion to support candidates that not only support working families, but also retired families. I mean, there are many candidates out there running for office that, if elected, want to change drastically the safety net that retirees have by reducing benefits and Social Security and Medicare. We also have legislative initiatives to increase or decrease the tax burden, the income tax burden on retirees throughout the state. I think they have a great game plan. They have a great group of leaders and activists. I expect to see big things coming from this organization moving forward. There's a lot of excitement here today, and I'm really looking forward to working more closely with this organization to help the betterment of all families in West Virginia.
And again, how we choose to get involved in elections, whether it's getting out, knocking on doors, making phone calls, talking to our friends and neighbors, lots of different ways you can kind of plug into your local elections, your county officials, state offices, federal officials. Again, the level of involvement is up to you, but it's an important part of good citizenship to roll up your sleeves and get involved in elections. Okay, at the 14th annual conference of the West Virginia Alliance of Retired Americans, had a chance to talk to the president of that organization, a lady by the name of Jenny Moles, and again, she discussed a number of things that are important to seniors, the importance of saving programs such as Medicare, Social Security. These are generally referred to as safety net programs that as you get older, you'd be able to rely on, count on the fact that those benefits are indeed going to be there when we need them. So again, part of it is looking at the establishment of a legislative agenda, and Jenny Moles talked about the comparative improvement in the economy of the state, the fact that we now have more tax revenues, and this may indeed be the time to start the discussion about the possibility of removing income tax on Social Security benefits, and just think of how helpful that would be for senior citizens. So again, ways in which to be more proactive in elections. Jenny Moles seemed to have a real good handle coming out of being very active in this recently concluded general election, but taking that momentum on into the upcoming legislative session. So let's see what Jenny had to say.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Alliance for Retired Americans?
The Alliance for Retired Americans is a national organization with over 4 million members. They're basically retired unionists from a lot of different unions, as well as community advocates that want to participate in doing what's right or working for legislation that's right for seniors and retired employees, such as Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid. So that's basically our primary goal, is to save those programs. Well, it's kind of exciting, Josh, because you know that nowadays everybody in the legislature talks about how well West Virginia is doing under the new rule and how much money we have in our coffers. So we've decided that our legislative agenda will be to push to have the income tax removed from Social Security benefits for all West Virginians that receive Social Security. It will not only benefit our members, but it will benefit every senior that's 65 and actually 62 and older in West Virginia.
Yeah, a great issue that would have a pocketbook impact to retirees all over West Virginia.
All over West Virginia, yes.
Yeah.
And again, Jenny Moles, right on point in terms of our increased activism and the impact that we can have on local elections, and certainly the importance of giving thought to what constitutes good public policy in the upcoming regular session of the West Virginia Legislature. The next person we were able to sit down with and talk a little bit, Sue Kelly. And Sue talked a little bit about the importance of the organization, the West Virginia Alliance for Retired Americans, that retired workers indeed need a voice. And just because you may not get up every day and go to work, you've certainly earned your retirement benefits and the quality of life you're able to enjoy. So again, this past election, Sue Kelly did some door-to-door work, voter contacts, and again, her point was we need to get more people voting. So participation, a continual theme throughout this 14th annual conference. So let's see what Sue Kelly said.
This organization is important because there are so many retired union members, so many retired workers in West Virginia, and we need a voice in West Virginia, and this organization will help us develop one and help us change things for retirees in West Virginia.
Sue, we just concluded an election within the last couple of weeks, and I know that you were very active in that election. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your volunteer efforts throughout the campaign?
Well, I loved going door to door. That was my favorite. We did honk and waves, which were also fun. But door to door is great because you meet the people of West Virginia. You can affect sometimes what they think and how they're going to vote. You can get people to vote. I met a man who had never been asked to register. He was in his 60s. He was desperate to vote, and no one had ever been able to help him do it. And that's what we need in West Virginia. We need more people voting. We need more people caring in West Virginia.
Good. And your efforts clearly paid off as a number of labor-endorsed candidates were elected. But moving forward into January in the legislative session, we're going to have some issues that the West Virginia Alliance for Retired Americans will be a proponent of, one of which is income tax relief for retirees. Will we expect to see you in Charleston when the session starts?
You better believe I'm going to be in Charleston, and I'm going to fight for retirees. I'm going to fight for the workers of West Virginia, all of us who have worked all our lives and are retired, and those of us who are still working and need help.
And the final guest we were able to talk to is a gentleman by the name of Elson Garrett, and he again is a lifelong member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And Elson made a positive point about the importance of your individual vote, that your vote matters, and it certainly can make an impact and effect on the outcome of any future elections. So again, with his background in the construction industry, he understands a lot of the impact of public policy, shifts in legislation dealing with right to work that impacted working families throughout the state of West Virginia. So again, the primary point here, I think you'll see, is that elections matter. So let's talk a minute with Elson.
There are a lot of people who believe that elections don't matter or their vote doesn't matter. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts that your vote does matter. and your comments and thoughts. Everybody, they think that they're not a politician or they're not in the political world, and no matter who they get in there, the governor or who gets in legislation, it ain't gonna make no difference. It does make a difference. You know, I come from the construction industry. That makes a big difference in our life. It's just in the past few months, they changed the right to work. They changed, they lowered our standards of living on our wages. And now that I'm retired, it makes a difference of my Social Security and my Medicare, you know, or someone like that. And my neighbors as well. You know, it's not only about me. And, you know, they don't know. You go down the road 6 months now, all of a sudden life changed so fast. Boom, you out of a job, you out of what's the name, you know, whatever. Hey, you need to get out and put your vote in. No matter, even if your governor you voted for him last year and he went in and changed his ticket, don't forget to go back next year and not to put another guy like that in there.
So what you're saying is your vote matters, elections matter, and what I'm hearing you say is it's not too early to start looking and working on the election for 2020 because it'll be here before you know it.
Definitely not, you know, because that's what happened. Everybody get caught up and they wait till the last minute, start looking for who do I want to vote for, which one's name. Hey, if you get involved with it, you know, hey, and don't believe every daggone thing you see on TV or whatever. You know, get to reading, read your history and whatever, and get orientated on what's the name, or get into something like I am in today, the Alliance Retirement. These guys got a lot of great information. They come out there and bring you up to date. And guys like me need to be able to take it back to some of my people in my neighborhood and tell them this is what's going on, this is a fact.
And you know, Elson makes the point that it's never too early to start, and perhaps we have a next election in the year 2020, but an awful lot of groundwork can be laid right now for the upcoming 2020 election. So it's time to heed the call, roll up your sleeves, and get involved in our electoral processes. Again, I think we learned from all of our guests today the importance of citizen activism and in getting involved in election processes. Certainly individual candidates put themselves on the line, go out and have to work very, very hard to get themselves elected to public office. But again, citizens should participate in those election processes, get involved, and stay alert to those matters affecting your own interests in the communities in which we live. Again, a great conference at Cedar Lakes, one that was very, very important to working families in the state of West Virginia. We're going to go ahead at this time and take a break and be right back to the Capitol Report to close things out. So stay tuned, stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is the West Virginia Capitol Report. Funding for the West Virginia Capitol Report is brought to you by Mark A. Hunt and Associates and by the AFL-CIO of West Virginia.
I'm Mark Hunt.
And I'm Tom McGee.
In my life, I've worn many hats, from being a father, a husband, to a 14-year member of the state legislature, nominee for the United States Congress, but through it all, a lawyer helping people.
Well, Mark, I've been in uniform on the other side of the world and on television at CNN and locally. And hey, I was glad for this day. And I'm a lawyer helping people, so call us. We can help.
Dan Hill Construction Company in Glen Ferris has over 33 years of local service. With county, state, and federal and church construction experience, we can design and build any type of project that will suit your needs. Once you select us for your project, we'll supply all the tools, labor, equipment, and materials to complete your project on budget and on time. We're a zero drugs tolerance company with an excellent safety record as a bonded and insured commercial contractor, with an outstanding relationship and payment record reputation with all of our subcontractors and suppliers. References available upon request. We are Dan Hill Construction Company, 9033 Midland Trail, Glen Ferris, West Virginia. 304-632-1600, license number WV001196, rated in the best top 50 government contractors in West Virginia.
From under the Gold Dome in Charleston, this is the West Virginia Capitol Report.
We know this, the most important conversation related to an election decision on who a voter is going to vote for is a one-on-one conversation. And we had I have a lot of people in this room who volunteered to knock on doors and make phone calls. And then, now that the election is over, ready to go to Charleston in January to make a difference and advocate for legislation that will help retirees throughout all of West Virginia.
Welcome back to the Capitol Report as we close out our program this week. And I found this program to be particularly interesting because it emphasized the real importance of citizen activism and involvement in our election processes. At a very minimum, our citizenship requires us to vote in each and every election as we assume responsibility for electing those candidates who will represent us in our county courthouses and Capitol buildings in both Charleston and Washington, D.C. It is disappointing, but nonetheless true, that the single biggest voting bloc among voters in our state are those non-voters or persons who choose not to vote in free and open elections. With the West Virginia Alliance for Retired Americans, we found a group of people united by interests of common cause. Most certainly, senior citizens have paid their dues and are entitled to live more comfortably in their retirement. As such, this organization became active in the general election and engaged in the work required to support the candidates who they believed would represent their best interests. Again, in this day and age, we must be prepared to protect and defend our Social Security benefits, Medicare, and those programs on which our seniors depend. When the legislature convenes in January, it sounds like our senior citizens will be present and accounted for. Again, as we saw during the teacher strike last spring, things get done when people get involved. It is through our participation and involvement in elections and in monitoring legislation pending before the legislature that we can best hold our public officials accountable. That's going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank Josh Sword and the West Virginia AFL-CIO for their assistance in the production of our visit to the 14th Annual Conference of the West Virginia Alliance for Retired Americans. To our viewers, we want to thank you for tuning us in each week as we bring you matters of interest and concern to the citizens of our state and the communities in which we live. Again, thanks for watching, have a good week, and goodbye, everybody.
This is the West Virginia Capitol Report. Funding for the West Virginia Capitol Report is brought to you by Mark A. Hunt and Associates and by the AFL-CIO of West Virginia.
I'm Mark Hunt.
And I'm Tom McGee.
In my life, I've worn many hats, from being a father, a husband, to a 14-year member of the state legislature, nominee for the United States Congress, but through it all, a lawyer helping people.
Well, Mark, I've been in uniform on the other side of the world and on television at CNN and locally. And hey, I was glad for this day. And I'm a lawyer helping people, so call us. We can help.
Dan Hill Construction Company in Glen Ferris has over 33 years of local service. With county, state, and federal and church construction experience, we can design and build any type of project that will suit your needs. Once you select us for your project, we'll supply all the tools, labor, equipment, and materials to complete your project on budget and on time. We're a zero drugs tolerance company with an excellent safety record as a bonded and insured commercial contractor, with an outstanding relationship and payment record reputation with all of our subcontractors and suppliers. References available upon request. We are Dan Hill Construction Company, 9033 Midland Trail, Glen Ferris, West Virginia. 304-632-1600, license number WV001196, rated in the best top 50 government contractors in West Virginia.
From under the Gold Dome in Charleston, this is the West Virginia Capitol Report.